Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a great Friday. You know how we do it. I'm going to go ahead and try to log on, and if you would, share it with your friends, with your following. Have a couple of parties if they still do that sort of thing. And we'll get started in just a second. So let me make sure I can know what I'm doing. So hold on just a second. I think I got it. And just ignore that music that you hear. That's beyond my control. Somebody's pretty happy outside. All right. I think we got it. We got it. I think we're good. So let me say, first of all, welcome and thank you for hanging out with me on a Friday evening. We won't be long. You know, it's still plenty of time when we finish. You can go to dinner. You can go do whatever you need to do on Friday. But let me introduce myself. My name is Sonya T, and I am the transition coach. I deal with everything that relates to transition, whether or not you are leaving the military and you don't know what to do next. You become an empty nester. Someone in your family has died and you don't know how to move forward. So I bring all of that I've encountered, including my clinical experience as a licensed clinical social worker and a woman that has been through several transitions. And we go through, I help you navigate the process of going through transition. Thank you, Sophie, so much for joining us tonight. It's good to see you. Tag a friend, and so we can get this ball rolling. So tonight, I am so beyond excited. And I know I say that every week, but every week I always have someone on special, and I have someone to always impart information and wisdom and knowledge in our lives. So, but tonight I have someone that I consider to be a son to me. He's like one of my godchildren. I am so excited for him. I'm not going to tell his whole story, but I was with him when he was in high school. He was coming to the house to get something to eat, coming to the house. Miss Sonya, can you take me to school? I missed the bus. And look at him now. I am so excited to have Jarrod Benjamin on with us tonight. He has done amazing things. And I cannot wait to delve into the conversation with him. There's so many areas in his life that I want to talk about. But since this is indeed the Veterans broadcast, and Veterans Day is next Thursday, we'll stick to the script, but we made wean off a little bit. We're just gonna follow the leading of the Holy Ghost and see where we land. So Jarrod, I want to say welcome.
Thank you so much.
I am so excited to have you tonight. I just like your mom, I am so proud of all that you've done and all that you are doing. I want to give people a little information about you, but I want to tell the people, if you really want to read all of this stuff, this is where you need to go to get all of the information. Jarrod D. Benjamin is the Florida International University Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Program Director, and he's also an adjunct professor. Amazing. You got to know the history to find that this is so amazing. He's also the Chief Executive Officer for his own business called The Lead Firm, and he is one of Miami's top Black educators for 2021. He served in the Army. He was deployed for 48 months of combat in Kuwait, Iraq, and Afghanistan. Oh my God. Oh, I just can't even imagine. And then he's a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. We are so excited to have him tonight. Jarrod, come on and fill in the gaps. Tell us a little bit more about you. Tell us some of the stuff that I left out.
Well, I'm excited to be here. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I went in the military around 2002, immediately after high school. So I spent half of my high school in Georgia, and the other half I spent in Texas. So I didn't have a definitive plan for college, and the military gave me some certainty. So I went to the military quickly. It was a quick decision because I didn't want to change my mind, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So I hopped in the military, served about roughly 15 years, and I was medically retired in 2016, where I transitioned into higher education. And so just a mix of uh, following paths that were made and just kind of gambling on myself. And a mixing of both of them ended up with the results we have today. But I'm super excited to be here, and I hope some of the things we can share from my experience can assist other veterans in transition.
Amen. Oh, I should be saying amen, huh? But sorry about that. You see how I just get carried away? But I say amen anyway, because you know what? The person, somebody told me a long time ago, the person with the mic is the one who has the power, and I have the mic. So
Yeah.
I can say amen. Amen
Amen.
to that. So you mentioned that you didn't have a plan when you were in high school. So what did you think was going to happen once you graduated? Once you left Druid Hill? No, you didn't graduate from Druid Hills. You were in Texas.
Mhm.
Once you left, what did you think? Where did you think you were going to? What did you think you were going to do?
I think a lot of the decisions on what you're going to do is based off your socioeconomic status.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was living in Georgia, I didn't have the highest socioeconomic status.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of opportunities that people who did have socioeconomic privilege get introduced to, I either didn't take serious or I just didn't get introduced to them. And so college as a single option didn't mirror what I saw on a day to day. So my
Mm-hmm.
dad went to the Navy. He went to college during his Navy experience. He ended up getting a 4-year degree over a period of time. So he didn't have a traditional college experience to navigate me towards. And
Mm-hmm.
my mom was a full-time mother, very young. And about 10 years after motherhood started, she went and got her social work degree from Northwestern in a really non-traditional format. And
Mm-hmm.
so the high school straight to college was not being introduced to me in the house. So I didn't look at it as a feasible option. So I did apply, and different changes in our family dynamic limited what support could be offered to me if I
Mm-hmm.
went in a traditional sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think lack of socioeconomic privilege is not something you want to continue to see as your only option. And so I saw
Mm-hmm.
college as an option, but I saw it in a very poor place, like
Right.
barely making it, and that was a
Right.
familiar experience. Um, and so I didn't want familiarity in that sense. So with no plan, as graduation grew near, around about February, I met a recruiter in the mall, and I really was going to give him a cold shoulder and dip on him like we normally did in high school,
Mm-hmm.
but I saw certainty in whatever he was going to discuss. And it's what started from a practice ASVAB test just so I could get a free meal from a recruiter in the mall, turned into a career, and then a second career from the skills I picked up in the military.
Wow, wow, wow. So that's hey Danielle and hey Tony, thank you all for joining us tonight. So that speaks volumes in that what we are exposed to, what we see, we kind of go from that as it relates to the next steps that we take.
Yeah.
Um, so when you had that conversation in February with the recruiter, did you know then that okay, this is what I'm going to do next?
No, one of my great friends, Orville Hudson, and myself had made a decision to go to Southern University in Baton Rouge. We were going to be roommates. That was the definitive plan, but I didn't even know what's next. So you got a letter of acceptance. Do you do FAFSA? What is
Mm-hmm.
FAFSA? And so I think in the absence of my parents being able to introduce it, we didn't have any parent friends, nannies, aunts
Mm-hmm.
down the street, or homies who could tell me, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing next. And
Wow.
so I thought the Army was a backup plan. But as May grew near, I'm like, this is about to be the main plan,
Mm-hmm.
especially when constituents are saying, this is the college I got accepted to. This is where I'm going to go. I got to narrow down my 5 schools to 1 school. And I'm like, I only applied to 1 school.
Wow,
You know,
wow.
yeah. So that made that recruiter text message, and he was persistent.
Mhm,
So he was writing me. So I felt certainty because I had continued communication from a recruiter that I didn't have from a college institution at that time. Whereas I had to control what was next if college was next, but the Army almost was like aggressive. So I was like, there's little work in me making this commitment and knowing I have certainty. So it felt good to go back to school after I made the decision, March, April time frame, to say, hey, I'm going to the Army. Because now I
Wow.
had something to say I was doing next.
Right. So let me ask you. So this was an Army recruiter. So how did you decide that the Army was the way I wanted to go instead of the Navy? Or you said your dad was in the military, or
Yes. My dad was in the Navy. My best friend at that time was Ogechi Wasu. Everybody knew him as Jay. Jay was in the Marine Corps at that time. I had a cousin that I admired, Edgar Bush Jr. He was in the Army and he was into Germany. And all I could think about was, Bootsy left Louisiana. I know that got to be fun. And so the recruiter, I didn't do it. I didn't make a choice like I would recommend today. Anybody who tells me they're interested in the military, I say review all the branches, build pros and cons based off quality of life, promotion systems, what skills you can gain from what. Are you entering with a family, without a family? So quality of life may guide you to one branch versus another. I didn't do that. The Army recruiter started, and I have a thing about commitment in all aspects of my life, whether it be relationship, family. I stick with the same barbershop, the same dry cleaners. So once I make a commitment, I didn't even consider listening to another branch, although that is not best practices or recommendation I have in this space now. I probably could have had some really different experiences had I considered other branches.
So what would you tell somebody that's looking to go to the military now?
I would definitely tell them to do two things. The first thing is write down all the branches in your own personal order previous to learning anything about them. Then visit all the recruiters with transparency. Remember, these people feeding their families by you going in. So just tell them I'm still reviewing my options. I haven't made a commitment. And so review all the options you're eligible for. Then lastly, I would encourage you to go to a reputable political news provider. Reputable is definitely through the lens of whatever your political affiliation or who you trust. Um, I don't want to tell you which one I would go to, but for me, whitehouse.gov, I would go because they're just laying out policies. Read policies that are about to be approved. Read how we sit as a country right now. I didn't do those things. So within 6-7 months of my first year in the military, I was in Iraq. I do not know if I would have joined knowing I had a possibility of going to fight in combat within a year.
Wow.
And so reading those policies, you realize where we stand as a country, and is there a possibility of conflict in the immediate future before you come in, especially if you're trying to make a small commitment like 3 or 4 years. Do we have any conflicts on the horizon 3 to 4 years? You know, if you're pro-vaccine, not pro-vaccine, right now as a military service member, you cannot choose. Vaccination for COVID-19 is a requirement. So if you're against the vaccine, this ain't a good time to join. I mean, just contextualizing it. You know, so you need to know where you stand to know that you're going to get put out if you don't take it, right? The entry level soldiers may be having to take it upon entering the military now. So that's a small example of making a decision that works for you. Where you are in your faith. You know, if defending our nation would make you feel convicted, because I do believe your spiritual walk is a part of how you're convicted is how you walk. Yeah. And so will you feel conviction by following direct orders versus following your faith or conviction in that moment? All those things should weigh into a decision that you're going to be making for a long-term commitment.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. Good information. I hope you all are listening and taking notes. This is great information, whether it's for you or whether it's for your neighbor down the street or for your kid. This is vital information before making a decision. Great information for me because I wouldn't even know where to start. Now I can help you with college, but military, I wouldn't even know where to start. I know that I have a nephew who is a recruiter for the Army. I would call him because I don't know what to do. So when you decided to go into the Army, how did you decide what you were going to do there? Did you decide or did they tell you?
It was a mixing pot. I was 17 years old. So at 17 years old, I honestly could say I was not positioned to know what skills I wanted to obtain. I was going for certainty. I wasn't going for skill acquisition. So I knew my dad was an IT professional. I wanted to be touching computers. But let me tell you, depending on the needs of the Army, everything can sound like computers, just being honest. So then the
Wow.
second traction for me was I went and joined a job that had a bonus connected to it. While the bonus don't seem like a lot today in 2021, $5,000 at 17 years old sound like huge money.
Yes,
Coming
yes.
from my background, not even not now, no one says tax or pre-tax because I don't have that experience to ask that then, right? So I just heard $5,000, and I'm gonna get that immediately after training. With this, I saw a $5,000 opportunity within a year, and I ain't never seen that kind of money in my whole life.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sitting there
yeah.
like, this gonna be easy. I'm gonna do a signal communications job. Whether I thought I was going to touch more computers at that time or not, that's how I hopped into that
That
opportunity.
$5,000 was blinking in your face.
Big
5,000.
time blinking. And
Yeah.
yeah, don't even know if I signed for it the right way. I was just so happy to know not only am I
Yes.
able to tell folks I got a future solidified, but I got a bonus connected to it now.
What was your occupation in the military?
I've had four. Okay, so the first one was I was a multi-channel systems operator. Y'all, you put up antennas for radio communication, um, and so lower enlisted, you're not really touching any of the equipment that would have been the equipment of my dreams. You're outside swinging a sledgehammer, and so
Wow.
that's kind of my first job. I did it for the first 3 years or so, and then I saw an opportunity to really touch computers, information systems technician. And so I transitioned, went back to Fort Gordon to school again, used it as like a reenlistment option, and I changed my job. And then I had an opportunity at 7 years to transition over to an officer as a warrant officer, and I changed my job again. Similar field, but more in depth, more in hands-on technician. Learned some more advanced skills in the military that really introduced me into cybersecurity in its infancy.
Wow. So you, in your bio, it says that you served in 3 wars.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told by somebody in that they can take you spend 3 weeks or something and they program you to believe or to do the army way or the military way. Uh so did you have that experience where they programmed you
Um,
to,
I don't know if program is a fair word. And
okay.
so I did two conflicts, but three separate deployment times. So one was Operation Iraqi Freedom, which was in Iraq, and then one was Operation Enduring Freedom, which was in Afghanistan. And so I think program definitely could make it seem a bit more harsh than it probably actually is.
Okay.
I believe you're trained, and so
Okay.
whether you take time to say that the initial 9 weeks of boot camp training would ever be used in a combat environment, you're still being trained, and everybody's being trained with those same fundamental skills. And then you go to your advanced individual training and learn skill sets for your job. All time they're saying they're preparing you to be a war fighter, whether you believe you're ever going to fight in a war or not, right? And so I can say everyone was trained, but getting there was a realization that came with it. Uh,
Yeah.
and early on, very low in rank, I was not given a lot of the whole stories. So I
Yeah.
was given my part of the mission, and it was not necessarily always every day wasn't a life or death situation. So it wasn't a time where I had to say I had to think a certain way. I just knew what my cookie cutter part of the mission was to keep everybody successful and succeeding.
So, well, let me just go ahead and ask you. So, did you actually have to go into combat back carrying a gun, just fighting and protecting your people or your cookie cutter assignment? Did you actually have to fire off rounds?
Yeah, so the first answer is yes, everyone carries a gun except for a chaplain in my unit. The chaplains have a chaplain assistant who are armed to protect the chaplain. And Geneva Conventions protect our spiritual leaders as well and medical staff, supposedly, on our end. And then, secondly, I have had the opportunity to have to fire off rounds in both theaters, Afghanistan and Iraq, in defense of in the moment mission. Um, and I would say that it's you count it success if you never have to. I guess that's a better way to word it versus saying you have to. And it's a feeling that you're acting based off training, not necessarily based off something you would be discussing years later to say this is what I did. It was more like you train for moments when you really ain't gonna be able to think as quick. So you're building a reaction time more so than something you got to give a second thought to. Should I shoot now? Should I not shoot? Or should I move the way I was trained to move?
Wow. Again, I can't even imagine. So how? So you did that. You were in combat. So, but prior to getting out of the service, you were not in combat. Is that correct?
No, I was actually my last assignment was in Hawaii, Fort Shafter, Hawaii. So I was
Oh,
at Schofield Barracks in 25th ID, 25th Infantry Division, and then I went to USERPAC, and my last assignments were during that time.
so how did you I don't know what you call it, but refocus your mind or or come back to reality, saying that I don't have to, be on guard all the time. How did you get your mind back?
I think in the later deployments, the military definitely built in support systems that were taken really serious in my later deployments. In my earlier deployments, I don't believe I personally, speaking from my lens, not sharing my federal government experience, but I can tell you, I did not feel as though I was comfortable to share that I needed emotional support, mental health, behavioral, and didn't even know how I would ask that question. And so my first two deployments, I don't think the focus was mental readiness as much as it was physical readiness. And we'll also have spiritual leaders out there. If you so happen to have your faith leader, you have spiritual readiness. But I don't believe there was a focus in the first two deployments on mental readiness. Or did I know how to ask for that level of support? On top of the stigma of being an African-American man, not being introduced to healthy mental health and behavioral health practices as a part of my rearing.
Wow, that's amazing. How do you renter after being in combat?
Re-entered.
Re-enter. Okay.
Yeah, no problem. Well, for me, they do have a procedure that kind of
Okay.
you debrief medically and physically, and then the military is still a regular 9 to 5. So we have what we call a garrison operations,
Mhm.
where no different than your regular go to job work every day. And so we do have a transition in that space. You do get an awesome leave. I always take about a month. I think that's when I used to get to see you, the family.
Mhm.
You get, and so there's a separation. Whether active duty, National Guardsman Reserve is share it, there's a separation between when I get home around my family, and there's a level of safety you feel than the level of alert you would feel while you're deployed. There's a
So
complete difference.
how did you handle the separation and then mentally preparing? I'm getting ready to go fight. How did you handle that?
My first assignment was to Germany. I'm more mature now, 20 years later, to share. I was not in a healthy mental space with that initial transition. I had only been, Georgia was the furthest I had ever been in the United States. And, that wasn't by plane the first time I went. And
Mhm.
so, you know, Louisiana and Texas being where I'm from, Georgia was the furthest we had ever been. So being in Germany for the first holiday season, November, it's cold, snow. I never seen snow, never been that cold, and didn't have a family to go eat Thanksgiving with. Just all the factors that would make you, and I'm dealing with transition on my own. Never had to
Mhm.
live by myself. Never bought toilet paper. But never bought paper towel. Never made groceries on my own. So these things, you're experiencing so much transition with no one coaching you.
And how did you do it? Who helped you?
A lot of phone cards, because you call who gonna listen. Let's just say that.
Mhm.
You call who gonna listen. My spiritual walk. Now I will tell you, and this definitely ain't gonna get me no popularity contest winnings, especially with my church home or even my family. I had went to church so much in my K through 12 years. I think I
Uh-huh.
was churched out.
No.
And so when I got in the military and had the choice to go to church on my own and have a personal connection with God on my own, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so where I think that would have been a great space as a support mechanism to say, hey, God, now my prayer life can open up so much more so that now I can have conversations with you about this transition that's so uncomfortable for me. I didn't want to do that. That's all I ever heard you do. You pray when you're in trouble.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I had friends that I would call, share my experience with, that had no military. They just was listeners. Your niece Danielle, my friend Jay, he was transitioning out the Marine Corps at that time. My family,
Mhm.
and let's be honest, you don't go to the military and leave country to be in constant communication with your family. Some folks you want to park,
Yes,
but
yes,
in desperation, you pick up the phone and you call. Who gonna answer? You
yes.
hear me?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, Danielle says, I remember when you first came home, you weren't ready.
Oh no, by no means. I was excited about a consistent check. Let me be real. I was excited about an independent life I could afford,
Hmm.
but I was not prepared to go to combat and fight for causes that I probably had personal convictions with myself,
Hmm.
um, and be in a position where I can't share my own opinion about what I may be defending. And
Hmm.
even 20 years later, I'm watching jury selections that are that show racial privilege truly exists. And so you telling me 20 years ago I was fighting for a nation that I have equality, equity, and access in, when 20 years later I'm shown, even when I'm slain based off the color of my skin, there won't be equitable selection for a jury. And so while I knew I was making a living, I still struggled with fighting for something that was not set up to support people who look like me.
Come
And
on,
so
you
that
preach
definitely,
that.
that was a frustrating space to be in, because those who look like me and I go vent to, all they could give me was a military answer, when I really was just trying to be sure I was a normal black man. Are
Hmm.
you okay with knowing I'm gonna fight today in Iraq, but if I happen to be having tint too dark on my windows when I go visit my family, I'm probably gonna get pulled over
Hmm.
just because I must be a dope dealer? Well, no, really, I'm a sergeant in the army. And I experienced those moments of discrimination when I would come home on leave, because I'm moving different. I'm spending my money different. I'm buying things that I traditionally couldn't afford. Maybe not even in that moment. My credit could
Yes,
afford it, right? And so
yes.
now I'm having interactions with the normalized civilian world, and reminded that prejudice and racisms and lack of equity exists. When I go back to base, I'm treated with respect and dignity, and I'm a senior non-commissioned officer or a warrant officer. But when I come back home, I'm a black man. And
Yeah.
it struggled to say I'm supposed to fight for all of this together when only this part is truly being represented. And to share that with folks who don't look like me, you already struggle with owning the privilege you have. And
Hmm.
now I have to tell you that your privilege makes me uncomfortable. They telling me, now you're a soldier, we all right. You don't have to experience it, so you can't relate to it.
Wow. When I tell you that I think it's in every pocket of our society. Just little microaggressions and the craziness that we experience, and then sometimes the craziness that I see children experiencing. Um, it is just unbelievable. And when for me, as a social worker, I say that a parent needs to be involved in every area of a child's life,
Yeah,
because of stuff that the child doesn't always tell you that's happening around them, whether it's in school, whether it's on the playground, wherever they are. Because it's real. I mean, clearly in 2021, you could not find more than one black juror to sit on the jury
mm,
for three white men that's
yeah,
getting ready to be tried. All of the other people are white. Come on.
yeah,
What it it still exists. Whether we want to believe it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, it's still here. It hasn't gone away, and somebody has given it a license to really raise its ugly head right now.
definitely.
And it takes me to a whole nother place. So we ain't not gonna even talk about that. Let's get back to you. So when you came home, did you realize that you had experienced some trauma?
Um,
Mentally?
you know, excuse me, trauma. No, not in that
Okay.
moment. I didn't. I realized there was something different about me.
Uh-huh.
But I can tell you, the first 7 years, I was using a comparison tool that truly didn't exist. You remember that wasn't the social media era. So it wasn't like you had people posting for likes and I was measuring my success versus their social media presence. No, it was more like I went straight to the military, but these are my friends that are in college. I'm enjoying looking at their experience. Well, they probably ain't even telling me, hey, Jarrod, if I don't have this meal plan, I'm broke and I'm hungry. Jarrod, college ain't what I thought it was. So I'm not hearing that version of the story. I'm only seeing their freedoms they're enjoying. So I think I spent more time being consumed with what I may have been missing in an experience that truly I wasn't missing much, because I get, 10 years later, midpoint of my career in the military, I'm coming home and I was more concerned as was I on level playing ground with my peers from high school when I had some skills, some soft skills, some combat skills, some leadership skills, some financial fortitude that they didn't even have to tap into yet. And so while they were gaining a traditional education, and I was doing a melting pot of efforts to complete a degree wherever I can go to college, right? I can tell you that I still was picking up some skills that you can't learn in college. And being an educator now, those soft skills show more prevalent that they're not being taught. I was watching a Facebook post of one of my fraternity brothers, as a K through 12 educator. He said, "Why aren't we teaching emotional intelligence K through 12? Why aren't we teaching how to balance a checkbook? When do we quit writing in cursive? Or do we not use phonics?" And I took all those things for granted, because I'm thinking, I thought my child was learning at 9, but I guess not, right? And so it's important that I acknowledge that I was suffering a traumatic experience, but I had no ability to recognize it was happening. And I was relying on the military to tell me what that trauma looked like. When I offer to you today that us who are in our age, I call it the Danielle. I'm going brand us the Jarrod and Danielle era. Are we having conversations with our children about mental health?
Yes.
And so if we're not, don't expect them to enter their career and understand what these microaggressions look like, understand what narcissists look like, understand what being micromanaged looks like, because their first experience is it's a time where it got to be normalized because it's connected to their checking account. And so you put me in a position where I'm my first education of trauma is experiencing the trauma. I can't say I was going through trauma. I say I was going through life's challenges. But now, 37 years old, and I'm educated on what those traumatic experiences look like. Hell, I was going through trauma K through 12. I went into the military with traumatic experiences. I went into the military with lack of privilege. So if you tell somebody who had an 8 that you're going to offer from a meal, I'm not measuring that meal against meals I wanted in the past. I'm measuring them out in the right now moment. So I'm eating what the plate have on it. And so if the plate had a side of trauma, if it had a side of abuse, whether it be mental or spiritual, to be quite honest, as a member of the Black church, my whole life, I've suffered spiritual abuse. And so everything, and then everything being in the Black church. When you're going through these stresses, no one's telling you behavioral health is needed. I was just sharing with my queen here at the house, like, hey, babe, I was so proud to know that I have a family member whose churches has outreach for behavioral health providers. That wasn't in my church. They told you to pray that thing out, or not. They told you to be quiet about it. And so that lack, I entered into a space that produces trauma. And then, and I didn't even know how to identify it. So no, I didn't know I was facing trauma, but was I? Yes. And how would I have changed it now? I would have been talking earlier, but Mike would have got medically retired earlier too, y'all. So all of open dialogue and communication in your early years is connected to your socioeconomic status.
Yeah. Wow.
I don't even know, not only did we not know where to get behavioral health care, who would pay for that? You're not talking about the same generation that also didn't get life insurance. You thought we got health insurance. Who would pay for that? So no one's having those conversations. Got to start in the now, previous to we even put our people into the workforce. So previous to the first transition out of the home, that's early conversations that need to be had. And then when we get into the workforce, that's continuing conversations that need to be had. So like they tell me now that I have no children under 18, you're a forever parent. And so, I think even for our adult parents who have adult children, that conversation can't stop there either. You got to still make it a normalize respecting your value, normalize your mental health,
Yes.
normalize conversations that are uncomfortable, normalize same gender sharing emotions. You
Hmm.
know, I had a best friend, but I didn't tell him I loved him until I was grown. But
Yes.
but Jay was there for me when I had no one else to talk to. But I didn't know that that was normal to say I love you to a man or a friend or the same gender. So normalizing everything isn't connected to orientation. Some of it is connected to true emotions.
Ooh, let me just first say, I am so proud of you. I am just overcome with this conversation. And with you as a black male, and with you as someone that I've seen grow up. It just does my heart so well. Danielle says, "Do you remember going to Stonecrest? Jeez, that was a wild night. I love and thank God for you. I don't know what y'all did at Stonecrest, but it was probably something you shouldn't have done. But we're gonna leave
Man,
that right there." Sophie says, "Say that, tell the truth." Jarrod, I'm finna shout down this Facebook today. Ain't he preaching? This young man is preaching today. Even if you would share this after we're finished, share it with other people so that they can. This is just not about being a veteran. This is so much more than just about being a veteran. It's about being a human being, being a black man. It is absolutely amazing. So you know what, before we talk about you getting out of the army and you starting your own business, tell us a little bit about your business.
so the Lead Firm is a comprehensive higher education consultant firm. We do everything from student programming, faculty programming, grant coaching and writing. We also do staff executive cabinet training. It was birthed out of frustration. Me and my business partner, Taylor McCain, both served as leaders in our National Pan-Atlantic Council affiliate organization. She was the national second vice president of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I was the international second vice president for Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. We got to travel a lot representing our organizations. I fell in love with the college leadership space. I had the great opportunity to go to Florida Memorial University and HBCU in South Florida, where I had a traditional college experience, mid-military, and I can tell you that that space made me so comfortable. It made me see that there's a lot colleges isn't teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So how are we supplementing this? And so for me, I immediately said we have to build a space where we bring relevant, applicable programming to communities that look like us. Well, first,
Mm-hmm.
secondly, bring it into spaces where you get that cookie cutter training that you was voluntold to go to, and you
Mm-hmm.
sat there and took no nuggets back.
Mm-hmm.
And so we opted to start a company with no business plan, with no business experience. So I share that no firmly because I want to let folks know that there's two ways you can look at that. We learned a lot of things by trial and error. While we now get to celebrate success, those first 2 years were hard with the lack of know-how, but also celebrate the fact that we didn't let the absence of knowledge slow down something that we were pregnant with.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like in the moment we were ready to launch our company, she had some professional frustrations. I had some financial capacity. And so we had a vision that I feel like we both were pregnant with. And you
Mm-hmm.
just can't be pregnant with something forever and expect
Yeah.
that you can give birth in the season that you are comfortable giving birth to it in. And so for me, we launched it first year and a half. We went through some legal challenges where we learned about just because you can name an LLC, if you have a like service with someone who's in proximity to you, it can definitely change your legal position in keeping a name.
Mm-hmm.
We also went through the absence of knowledge on how to penetrate the market.
Mm-hmm.
Really
Mm-hmm.
just didn't know, how do you get before colleges? How do corporations want to hear what you have to say? And then we caught on. And around about year 3, we went from 2 to 6 clients to about 46. Year 4, about 86. Year
Wow.
5-ish, we're now at roughly about 169 institutional clients,
Wow.
about 5 corporate clients, and we do 3 national conferences a year. So we've grown. I would love to tell you it's all through experience. It's a melting pot. We had a little bit of experience, a little bit of know-how, a little bit of financial fortitude, but a little bit of favor. And so all of those things positioned us to champion this higher education consulting space and now be respected as one of the premier consulting firms in higher education.
Wow. When you go to his website and you look at all of the places that they've been, I'm amazed. I mean, it could cover a whole page of places and people that they've touched. And I know you said African American, but you have touched other people as well.
Yeah,
And that's
definitely.
exciting. So
Yeah.
if Danielle says, I'm so incredibly proud of you, man. You are the man that you've become. I second that, Danielle. So now you are getting ready to get out of the military.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make the transition to civilian life again?
I was thinking through this question earlier today, and I thought I had a programmed answer, but I ended up changing it as we prepared today to say accountability is huge.
Mm.
You're getting out, and getting out ain't no secret, unless something has caused a reaction, and
Mm-hmm.
and getting out becomes more of an adverse action versus a positive action. But I say that to say, knowing you're getting out, building an accountability system. To say, hey man, these are some benchmarks I'm gonna have to hit if I'm serious about being successful post-military. Your network is your net worth. People say it in a cliche time so many times, but I wouldn't be where I'm at today without some of my social capital. And so whether it be my fraternity, my beloved brothers of Phi Beta Sigma, they did not let failure become an option post-military for me. It was more like, where did I want to stay versus what did I want to do?
Wow.
And also my church community. I am part of an apostolic faith, Church of God in Christ. Huge network of churches. Wherever you go, you're gonna find a Kojic church, right? And so definitely making a decision where I wanted to live post-military that can support, because now I'm not the trauma ignorant individual that entered the military 20 years ago. Now I am very well versed in what behavior health and mental health looks like. So going somewhere that would support that for me, going somewhere that I would feel comfortable raising my family was very important. And going somewhere I could afford.
Yes.
When you're getting out the military from Hawaii, I can tell you there's some perks in that. Everywhere's affordable after that, right?
Yes.
The second thing is positioning myself. I would tell folks, if you're preparing to get out, some things I didn't do right. It's always better to shame the devil. I can brag on myself, but we struggle and shame what we could have done better. 6 months of your savings is important. People say that all the time, but you may not get onboarded as quick as you want, even if you have the best skills. So saving for what looks like your lifestyle. I thought I had 6 months of savings, but it wasn't according to my lifestyle. It was according to being without some things that I was used to being with.
Yes.
The other thing is, look at your credit and put a close eye on it, because your credit is going to put you in spaces that your checking account can't. And then be very verbal about getting out. I didn't have a strong social media presence that I have now. And so I think if I had that social media presence I had now, I would be sharing with my network, I'm about to relocate. You can say in search of job titles.
Yes.
Look, we didn't have that as resources then, but utilize it. I got a LinkedIn account post-military. Get a LinkedIn account now, even if you're serving. Because one thing that you don't do in the heat of the moment, you don't quantify your successes. We qualify them. That's what we're trained to do, is to show that I'm worth something. I'm interviewing. I have all the qualities. I qualify. But quantify. How are you able to say you did your job and quantify it so that a civilian can hear it?
Wow.
And so for me, being a cybersecurity professional sounds like a great title, but how do I quantify it in conversation? Can I say that I established a network for communications for an entire theater of operations in Afghanistan. I had 57,000 people I was responsible for being able to talk and get on the internet. At some points it grew to 200,000. Those numbers and quantifying can change what spaces you're going to be invited to when it's time to get out the military. And then I think one of the other things is we're going back into a space where a 4-year degree isn't always going to be the prerequisite to get into job opportunities. But let me share with folks, when you don't have all the privileges in your favor, there's 5 major privileges the Academy teaches us: heterosexual privilege, religious privilege, socioeconomic privilege, white privilege, and I'm leaving one off, gender privilege. And so if you already don't have all the privileges in your favor, why not make college something that you have control of, something you do on a dime? So take as much opportunity to take care of self. We say self-care, but I'm not talking pedicure, manicure. I'm talking about increasing your net worth with academic achievement, something no one can take from you. So put some degrees on your wall, because it definitely opened up some spaces for me that I wouldn't have been able to get open just with my CV or my resume. So, doing those things and then making a firm decision. I ran from cybersecurity and IT when I first got the military because I had did it so long. So there was an association of those skills with trauma. Mm-hmm. And so I used higher education as my next career, but it brought me right on back to cybersecurity. And so it's okay to be very honest with yourself and say, this occupation and skills I've gained is triggering.
Yes.
So maybe I need to reinvent myself. And so it's okay to do that. And so I encourage people to say, you got some soft skills that ain't connected to your career. So I'm an effective communicator. I know how to be an empathetic leader. I have patience. I know how to quantify skills. I know how to listen, because sometimes you got to shut your mouth, right? Mm-hmm. And so I say those things to say, those are skills that's going to help me get into any career, and people are going to want me. And they may not be attached to the skill I picked up in the military that may be triggering. So it's okay if you was a nurse in the military, an engineer, IT, a culinary arts professional. If those skills are triggering, just take the soft skills and reinvent yourself post-military. And that's okay. Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what you did.
I did it. And I'm going to tell you, when you're in the middle of doing, you don't capture it as a success. You're like, man, this is a challenge. But when you get on the other side of an obstacle, you celebrate by saying, I'm happy I was bold enough to be an example for a community that may not get a lot of examples.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm okay with the successes and the failures that came through that journey, because they all make up the best part of me.
Amen. Oh my God. Amen. Amen. They all make up the best part of me. And you know what? Sometimes when I look back over my life, I think, God dang, girl, you've been through a lot, but they all make up the best part of me. Yeah, they all make me who I am today. And there are very few subjects that I cannot talk about when it comes to transition.
Definitely.
It's amazing. So I want to, before we wrap up, if you all have any questions, if you would go ahead and put them in the chat so that I can ask them. Felicia Brown, I think that's how you pronounce your name. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, Aunt Joan, for joining us. I saw you earlier. If you all have any questions, again, go ahead and put them in. We are about to wrap up. It's already 7:48. Did this time go by fast or what? It always goes by so fast. So tell me, what advice, when do you think a person should start preparing for their next, if they're in school, if they're still in middle school, high school, when should they start preparing for the next thing that they want to do after school?
Okay, so weigh all your options. I think I'm speaking to all communities when I say this. Don't let the expertise or the lack of in your house pigeonhole your offspring or those you mentor or raise. Let's be honest, every parent or all parents aren't giving birth, but some people become parents because you're there and I need you, right? And so if you don't have expertise, invite your village to offer that expertise to your child. So for our first generation college students, guess what? Let's not let that be the reason they don't know how to do FAFSA. Let's not let that be the reason they don't know how to review college options that best fit their financial position and academic posture. Invite folks into that conversation if you're not equipped to have it. and to our church community. I say this through the lens of clergy. Be that outlet for our community. Let that be a ministry. Let that be a ministry where we're ensuring that we're producing workforce ready saints. You know what I'm saying? And so, and then for those that are considering the military, really, really look at our nation's posture. I do not discourage service. I'm going to tell y'all now, and I say this with conviction. Had I not served, I wouldn't be who I am today, because it definitely opened up doors that I don't know if I would have been able to open up just with prayer. And I don't say that to challenge our faith. I say it to say I needed some experiences to mold me and to chip me in spaces that I needed to be chipped off. I needed the service obligation to teach me commitment, where I didn't see examples of commitment all the time in my upbringing. You know, I needed to see what it felt like to earn and not live check to check. I wanted to know how that felt. You know, I wanted to I wanted healthcare to not be an option. I wanted healthcare to not be an option. I wanted it to be something I know about. I wanted life insurance to be a norm. And so I'm saying these things because if all of those are reasons why you're going to serve, you're going to be okay. But if you're going to have some personal convicting moments, I'm asking that you look at our nation's posture. Have that conversation with folks who are on both sides of the political realm. Because it ain't about my I vote, y'all. I can't tell you I always vote Democrat. I always vote Republican. I vote half and half. I vote. So what I can tell you is I vote based on what's going to keep the Benjamin household afloat and protect those that I have to support. And so I say that to say it's important that you look at all of that. Look at all branches, because quality of life matters. Look at all branches. And then don't just stop there either. Have conversations with some veterans that served. My experience isn't a 2021 experience. So I don't have a right now opinion to give you, but I can tell you based off my experience, it put me in spaces I would have never been to on my own. I didn't know about no passport, flying overseas, enjoying. So those are experiences that are still part of my culture, my upbringing, and I can share with my children and have honest conversations and say, I was exposed to this, so I want to be sure you're exposed to it.
Wow.
Building norms and breaking curses were a part of my experience as well, too. And so while I sit here and say, yes, I may be a disabled veteran, while I sit here and say I served in combat, maybe everything wasn't 100% transparent all the time, I would be failing if I didn't celebrate the fact that it built a leader in me that I didn't know existed. You know, it provided opportunities for me to take care of my family in spaces that no one else in my family had the capacity. You know, it taught me hard work does truly pay off. I got to unpack terms such as cognitive dissonance, knowing the right thing to do, but sometimes folks choose the wrong thing to do. I got to see what easy wrongs can look like and hard rights can benefit you. And so in those spaces, that was my military experience that I love and I discuss. And then in the spaces where I think I had some hardships, I tell folks, I knew my career hardships, so I didn't have a problem re-enlisting. It's the people who may have to go career to career in the civilian space where you have to learn different cultures according to the corporate structure you get hired into. At least I know every base, I'm still in the Army. You may go from one company to another and learn a whole corporate culture. So,
that is, it's amazing. You all, we're getting ready to wrap up. Do you all have any questions? What advice would you give someone that's trying to start their own company or want to be an entrepreneur?
Study more than how to start an LLC. A couple terms I want to throw out there, but I think it's important that you learn them in the infancy of your vision, not the infancy of your start. If you don't have an affordable, if you don't have financial capacity to build a quality website, use LinkedIn until you got the capacity, or use social media until you have the capacity. A dry website that take me too many clicks to get to the product or services you offer just made you waste money, and I grew irritant with your brand, not just your website. Don't chase clients. Let clients chase your service. So always treat every client, big or small, with a touch that's going to provide them a repeat customer or referral, so that you're not always chasing clients. Build boundaries. I found myself working 26 hours out of 24 on a company vision. And when I was burnt out, I couldn't give my best anyway. So don't burn out. Set boundaries to say, maybe I'm going to park this at 8 o'clock at night so I can rest up, in the next morning I'll start this entrepreneur drive over again. Understand what a profit loss statement is. Gross income isn't the only income you're going to be able to spend. You're going to have to know what you're losing and what you're investing. And if you don't have the skill sets to do it, Google, find your profit loss statement template if you can't afford to buy softwares yet. Do your taxes, no matter how big or small you earn. Do your taxes, because they're going to come back for you eventually. And you don't want it to come back when you don't have the capacity to pay. And business credit is just as good as individual credit. So you really want to protect it early on. And then I think the last thing I would say is have an elevator pitch. You don't know who you're sitting next to. So I don't want my business card to talk for me. I'm not going to be like, take the car. I'm going to tell you the story. So build you a 90-second story that could tug a little bit. You know, how am I impacting lives through Lead Firm? How has my journey through Lead Firm been personal? How can I make it a part of your personal? And then for me, for my faith believers, pray for manifestation before you even see it. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't leave you with something that has encouraged me spiritually in this space of entrepreneurship. We think back on a biblical story, and Sonya, where we had the disciples in the boat with Jesus, and the disciples woke Jesus up. He was resting, and they complained about the water. Well, in my church experience, it always ended the story with saying, he said, "Peace, be still." Well, I unpacked it a little bit further, and I realized these are 12 master fishermen. Why would they be asking a carpenter, what should we do on water, when this is their habitat? And so I didn't get excited with him saying, "Peace, be still," but I got excited that they did not depend on him based on his skill. They asked him for help on the water based off his calling. So entrepreneurship is a calling. You're not going to always have all of the skills to get it right first year, second year. But if you're committed to the work, you're a transition coach. So as a business owner, you're committed to the calling of transition. You're going to coach folks through it. You know, if you walk in your calling, your earnings are going to match your expertise. It's just going to take a little time for it to catch up. So now, based off my expertise, I don't have capacity for all the opportunity, because now I'm in my calling, and I had to go through some things to really chisel off things that were not going to be supportive to my calling. So if touching student lives, faculty, staff lives, having a few corporate clients is a part of my calling, because I'm walking in my calling, it's going to be more natural in seeing them versus walking in my skills. I'm a cybersecurity professional. And so now you begin to see your entrepreneurship efforts paying you more than your career aspirations, because one, I'm skilled to do, but one, I'm called to do.
Come on.
I want those who are entrepreneurs to study, you know, more than just how to start the LLC, but how to sustain the LLC. And sustainment is going to take you operating in your calling.
Oh my goodness. Woo! Okay, let me get my breath. Honey, you have preached a sermon right there. Oh my goodness. I gotta go back and listen to take notes just for me. That was powerful. Oh my goodness. Wow. Y'all, he just told you he was a member of Koja. He didn't tell you he was one of their preachers. He didn't even say that. But let me tell you, he's one of their preachers. Wow. Danielle says this is literally a response to the last 48 hours of prayer for me. All right, come on. Yes, oh, and Sophie said, me too. You preaching capacity and calling. I'm running right now. Honey. Okay, y'all, it is 7:59. Does anyone have any questions? Again, if you want to reach out to Mr. Benjamin, I'm going to put his information back up too. You can go to Instagram and find him there, or you can go to his website and go ahead. So you can fill out the information so you can keep in touch with him, and he'll send you out what he's doing and where he's going. I already signed up. So it is just imperative. Oh my goodness, I am so godly proud and so godly honored to know you. I never in a gazillion years with you working at Chick-fil-A, you and Jay, or you coming to the house wondering if Danielle is home, or wondering, you know, what we cook for dinner, are coming and knocking on the door and saying, Miss Sonya, can you take me to school? I missed the bus. I never in a million years would have imagined. I knew that you were going to do great things. I just didn't know what.
Thank you.
It is just absolutely amazing where you are right now and the lives that you're touching right now. Um, it's just amazing to me, and I am so proud of the path that you have created for yourself. You are a trailblazer.
Thank you.
It's not like you followed anybody else's path, not that you know had direction from anybody. It was you and God doing this, and it's clearly obvious that He has been working on you and through you and with you, and His favor is all over you. I am just so happy for you. What's next for you?
We published our book as a lead firm last year. We've had about 16,000 copies purchased. So we're looking at volume 2 this summer releasing. I really am looking at transitioning our business model. I do travel about 26 weeks a year. So I'm looking at how do I reduce my travel and still produce products that are going to impact institutions of higher learning. Shout out to Bowie State University. I most recently developed their transgender guide so that transgender students have equitable access and support during their collegiate experience. So I'm looking forward to publishing more work like that and support spaces.
Whoa. Let's stop right there. I know it's 8:01, but I gotta ask you the question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a little bit of what you told them? How do you manage that?
Definitely leading and supporting by championing lenses of biases. I think we all have to acknowledge we have inherent privileges and biases that are part of our upbringing and culture. I mean, it's no secret, y'all. I was raised in the church, so the LGBTQIA community has lacked equity in the church for years.
Yes.
I know I'm gonna have some believers who beat me down and say the equity lacks is because they should conform. Well, I would say that I'm in the business of creating believers in all forms, and so and so in that space, I think a lack of equity has always been in spaces where people are uncomfortable, whether it be race or gender.
Yeah.
And so I parked my convictions and looked at how can we better take care of humans that are going to be in campuses. And so what we did is we even if you have biases that tell you this population are okay, let's dig into what okay is. And if you have to just say okay, you know something's not right, right? And so we acknowledge every hallmark and every competency that needs equitable access, and how can we provide share those wraparound services and entities on campus and put it in one document so that it has a quick reference guide and also a full publication on supporting a community that deserves support.
Amen. They're people. They're humans.
Mm-hmm.
They may not believe like I believe, but I still don't shun them because they don't believe like I believe.
Definitely.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts? Any final words? Or anything you would like to share?
Yes. One, thank you. Thank you so much. Not just for today, but thank you for years of pouring into not just my success, but you was with me when I wasn't succeeding. And so you're an example of a mother that didn't give birth, you know. And so it's important that we realize that we're not going to give birth to everybody children, but we need to wrap around and be their parents too. And so I celebrate that as a part of my success. I also I celebrate Danielle, who's attending tonight, a great friend and a listener, even when friendship, when communication wasn't consistent, friendship still was. And so I value that because we all need our own spaces to grow in, but still to know I have friends while I'm climbing. And then I want to acknowledge a few individuals that I think is important to say out loud. And in every opportunity I can, I say their name out loud. I love my father, but I was not raised with a father the entire youth experience. And so it was some men who showed up that didn't have to show up. Kevin Jones was a band director and a Sigma brother Before I knew what brotherhood exists in fraternity spaces. And at Druid Hills, he saw something in me when I didn't even want to see in myself. And he was much more than a band director. And so that present father, I acknowledge him and I celebrate him. I celebrate. I celebrate my grandfather who passed away in January. He taught me that hard work gonna take you a whole lot further, and be certain of yourself, because you're not gonna have a cheerleader in every component of your life. And so cheer for yourself. And I'm thankful. Up to his death, he always encouraged me to cheer for myself. And then I celebrate my mom's sacrifice. While parenting isn't easy, there's no perfect solution to parenting. I know it now as one, right? But I would say, if I had to acknowledge an MVP who did the best with what she had, I had an MVP as a mother. And we don't always agree. I'm gonna be honest. We don't always agree. Even at year 37, we have different thought processes and beliefs and professional aspirations. But one thing I can tell you has been consistent is love. And so I consistently thank her for it. And I thank someone who isn't here with us today too, your sister. I laugh because she knew how to leave a touch with us, even post her existence. I was giving a sermon some months ago, and I opened up a Bible. It was the Bible she bought me. And I said, how convenient that she leave a reminder after the fact. But I acknowledge her, not because even her spiritual touch towards me. I acknowledge her for her presence in spaces that folks was not having conversation with young African-American men about. And she boldly had those conversations and made your home, her home, our home, a safe space. And so I'm encouraging veterans that are transitioning to find safe spaces, even if it doesn't have physical presence. Find safe spaces in your mental space, your emotional space, your personal space, to have a trusted listener to help you transition. And there's no perfect transition, but transition exists, and you're gonna have to do it. So plan early. And if much like how my good friend Sonya just plugged Lead Firm, I'm plugging her as a transition coach, is operating in her calling. Find you one, because transition is scary. It's an unknown territory, but find somebody gonna help you walk through it. So be encouraged, because the skills you're gaining as a veteran and those who become service members are invaluable. And I look forward to following your journey as you follow mine.
Wow, that is just absolutely amazing. Man, I am Sonya Cruel. I am the transition coach. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I deal with all things transition. I didn't say this earlier, but I have a couple of books out, one called Transition from Then to Now to Next, and it talks about transition and helps you navigate your next. And then I have another book called Divorce in the Upper Room, talks about my experience of going through a divorce and some things to do and some things not to do. You all, I am just so, to be totally honest, I'm a little overwhelmed now. So I'm just so excited, so honored to have Jarrod D. Benjamin on with us tonight. He has made an impact on me, if nobody else. But I am absolutely positive, whether you're listening live or whether you're listening on the replay, that an impact has been made. Thank you so much, my son. I love you dearly. God bless you, and continue doing the work of the Lord. It's not in the pulpit all the time, but you are making a difference in lives that you may never know about until you get to heaven. God bless you, and I love you so much. You hold on as I say goodbye to everybody else. Y'all have a great evening, and you all, I'll catch you again in 2 weeks. Don't forget to recognize the veterans on next Thursday. Love you. Don't forget to wear your mask, get vaccinated. I don't care what these people say. You go get that shot in your arm, and you wear that mask, because it's not over. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Be good.